Welcome back to the Humble Rising podcast. I am your host, Adivi Vargas, and I have a special guest for you this week. Her name is Simone Knego, and she is an international speaker. She is an award-winning author and confidence expert who helps high achievers, yes, reconnect with their worth and lead more meaningful lives. She has a best-selling book. It's called The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You, and her globally ranked podcast called Her Unshakable Confidence, which she hosts with her daughter, has inspired audiences from around the world. She is a two-time TEDx speaker and featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, Entrepreneur, and Yahoo News. And she is the creator of The Real Method, which is a framework for building long-lasting confidence from the inside out. She has a second book called Real Confidence, which launched just a month ago, and she offers in it a practical guide to quiet self-doubt and lead with clarity and self-respect. Now, she's also a warrior. She has summited Mount Kilimanjaro. She has raised 6 children. Yes, my ladies, if you just felt that in your body, if you have children and you felt that in your body, 6 children. And she has navigated the beautiful chaos of everyday life. She brings authenticity, perspective, and heart to everything that she does. And in this conversation with Simone, we explore faith, identity, personal growth, and the courage it takes to evolve. Simone opens up about the seasons that really challenged her and stretched her, including moments of doubt, reinvention, and stepping away from expectations that no longer fit. And she reflects on surrendering control, which allowed her to grow into a more grounded, confident version of herself. Our conversation goes beyond, surface level success and digs into the inner work of evolving and becoming. And it's a conversation about shedding labels, old narratives, and understanding that growth often requires letting go, right? The year of the snake was last year, letting go, shedding before stepping forward. This year is the year of the fire horse, right? In the lunar calendar, right? So in this episode, you're going to learn and understand why personal evolution can feel lonely before it feels freeing and liberating, and how discernment can really guide some major life decisions. You will learn the difference between external success and internal alignment, and how to release some old identities that no longer serve you, and so much more. With that, here is my conversation with Simone. Simone, thank you so much for joining me on the Humble Rising podcast. I am so excited for our conversation today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Simone, let's get right to it. People have learned about you through the intro that I gave about you before we started recording. So let's just give them a little bit more of your story and your background and what led you to do the things that you do today.
So I have 6 kids. I've been married for 32 years, and I've done many things in my life. I'm a big believer it's okay to change your mind. I started off as an accountant, had a bachelor's and master's in accounting, became a CPA, didn't love anything about it, and figured out what to do next. And I've done a lot of things. I flipped houses. I went back to school to be a teacher, and I worked in medical sales. And now I do what I absolutely love, which is speaking and writing. Never thought that would be my path. And my advice is just do things, just try things so that you can see what you like. And that's kind of where I am right now. Is I've just finished writing my second book. I have a podcast with my 22-year-old daughter, and it's fun. I really enjoy what I do.
Wait, Simone, how old are your kids now?
So they're 29, 25, 22, 21, 19, and 18.
Wow. Okay. And so
But
I have three, and they're 10, 8, and 4 as of this recording. And I often tell people 2 to 3 is a big jump. Like I felt like that. But then when
yes.
I hear you talk about 6, I just am like, oh, at that point, what do? You just throw up your hands and say, like, hey, each person for themselves.
Zone defense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a different mindset going into things because you know it's going to be chaos, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it just is what it is. Yes, the biggest jump was from 2 to 3 because you have 2 hands, so you could like manage. And then when you get to 3, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Right? Like, you got to stay in the stroller so I can handle these other two. And it becomes chaotic. And, with 6, obviously the older kids helped out. And
Yes.
I don't think you can have a big family without everybody pitching in because it is too chaotic.
Simone, so having even, I'm thinking about, and everybody's family situation is different, but I'm thinking about for those who have children, were there seasons of your life as you were raising them where you said, okay, I just got to keep things steady for myself? And then seasons or times when you thought to yourself, I'm going to try something new, I'm going to do something different.
Mm. Yeah, I would say for a long time, I stayed in that let's get through the day. And my purpose was making sure everything ran. I won't say smoothly because, that's just not real life. But I really struggled for a long time with self doubt, not thinking that I was doing anything amazing in the world, not thinking that I was capable of doing any other things. And so I stayed stuck for a really long time. And when I started moving forward, that's when I said, try these things, like do different things to see what you really like. Especially for the fact that I have 6 kids, I knew that when I became an empty nester, which could potentially be next year, like we'll see, right?
Ah,
Um, yeah, that I didn't want to have that void of saying, what do I do with myself now? Because I see so many friends and so many women that I work with are like, okay, well, I devoted my whole life and now they barely call me. What am I going to do now? And so I truly believe that we need to have a passion, a purpose that not only includes our family, but includes ourselves so that we understand that we can move forward. And for me, I wanted to start it earlier to make sure
mm.
that I had something once they were all out of the house.
Did you realize that you wanted to have it when you realized you needed that or you wanted that? Was there something going on in your life or any circumstances that kind of pushed you forward to say, okay, I gotta try something else? Like, what was that? Can you paint for us what
Yeah.
that looked like for
Yeah.
you?
I think I just felt so there were a couple of things that happened. So one night and this wasn't like the reason it happened, but I was sitting at this event and the woman I was sitting next to was a CEO of some big company. And we got to talking and then she's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, right? I used to use the word just a lot when I would describe myself, like justifying my life. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. She goes, oh, I can't imagine anything worse. Oh, thank you so much, right? And
Yeah.
I just added to when I was already doubting myself, it just added to, wait, you really aren't doing anything, right? And it's so ridiculous that that was my mindset. The most important job I've ever had is raising good humans across the board. I mean, that is hard stop. But I didn't see myself like that. I saw myself as, well, okay, you're probably messing it all up, right? And I think so often as women, we do that to ourselves. Like oh my gosh, you're not good enough at this, or you're doing this wrong. And none of that matters. Like as long as we're doing our best, that's the important piece. And so that season was that I really felt like I wasn't doing anything right and I needed to get out of my way. I needed to get out of my comfort zone to make a change.
Mm. Yes, I think sometimes, especially as women, as you mentioned, there's this feeling like what we're doing at home, like mothering and parenting, and we all know the research on the invisible load of the mother, even though a father or your partner could be, doing the fair share of the physical load. There's this invisible mental load of, I just think of all the things of, you know, okay, it's a new season. The kids grow so much when they're younger. They need new winter boots. They need new winter jackets. They need to swap out the clothes in the drawer. I'm thinking of like all the things that women anticipate
Mm-hmm.
and we think about that's on our minds and the invisible lists that just like don't ever stop. I always tell people the best thing that ever happened to me was when I realized my to-do list will never get done in my
Mm-hmm.
entire life. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Look, I don't have to get it all done. But I do
Yeah.
think about, as you're talking, I think about how, and I don't know, I think this, I've been thinking about this a lot lately of how this society, at least American society, and maybe many other cultures too, like don't really value motherhood because it's not there's nothing to like quote unquote measure. There's not like this reward or measure that's quantitative like a title is, or like, oh, I make this much money. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we get so caught up in that we look at, like what you said, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And how you would say I'm just a stay-at-home mom. It's almost because like we've conditioned to feel that way, that like that has no quote unquote measurable value, but it has the most value in
Mm.
reality, right? Like when you said
Yeah.
raising good humans, it's like I'm creating the leaders of the world. Like I'm making sure that my kid is spreading kindness and goodness and fairness so that your kids can have a great life too. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is the greatest job. So I'm just thinking, I don't know what if you have anything to add to that, but I've been thinking a lot about how we measure our value. And so often it's so externally imposed. And then we go through this evolution of what it means to have purpose, what it means to feel like you're doing enough.
Yeah. We really focus on that external validation and not the internal validation, which is what we need to focus on. So, one of the things I talk about is the idea of kitchen table leadership, that we've been sold this view of what leadership is. You're in the boardroom, you have the corner office, you have the title, but leadership is the decisions you make every day around the kitchen table, the messy moments, the things that nobody ever sees. Like those are leadership decisions. And I think if we started defining things differently and really started believing them, then we would look at ourselves differently. Because I mean, that's what has been a big change for me, is focusing on not the title of something, but what impact am I having? What influence I have in terms of, because that's what leadership is. It's influence. So whether you're leading your family, you're leading a boardroom, you're leading a group of volunteers, it's all leadership and it all has the same value.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, and I'm sure you have a gajillion stories in your mind too of people that you work with where their mindset and their kind of heart set has to shift
Mm,
to seeing themselves differently. And I know you talk about this a lot, how you see yourself can change everything that you see,
hmm.
right? Those things change as you change your lens and how you see yourself. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on what keeps these very seemingly high achieving women and people, like what keeps them stuck in the same mindset, like what keeps them from understanding and embodying that leadership is all the decisions made every day. It's your daily choices. Who you become is what you're doing each day. Like these what we think of are micro moments become
Hmm.
big things in the end.
Yeah. So much of it is comparison. We constantly worry about what everybody else is doing. I mean, imagine the world where we didn't look at social media and say, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. I'll never look like that. Or, wow, look at that house. I'll never have a house like that. What if you just looked at it and said, oh, that's great. Yeah. And just like left it right there and
Mhm.
not really put yourself into the sentence, because you shouldn't be in the sentence, because whatever that post is, it isn't about you, right? But
Mhm.
that's what we do. We put ourselves into the middle of that, whatever the discussion is, thinking, well, that will never be me. I'm not good enough for that. And I think so many women have this amazing resume of skills, amazing resume of work, whether it's business related or not. But until someone tells us that we did a good job, we're like, oh no, it's not real. It's not a big deal. And we have to start owning it, as everything we do is a big deal. If your best friend gave you a list of all the things they did today and you read through it, you'd be like, that's amazing. But if you wrote it down and read it to yourself, you'd be like, didn't really do very much. Like, pretend you're your best friend. You should be
Yeah.
your best friend, right? And I,
Yes. Yes. It's, Simone, I feel like I've gotten a lot better with that, but I still find it challenging.
mhm. Yeah,
I feel like there's always this, I've gotten better at what I think I've gotten better at is, this is what I teach too, which is what, sometimes it's easier to teach and advise and coach on something than it is to do for yourself. But I've gotten better at, like I said, like looking at my list and saying, like, look at the 3 things I said were the most important things to do today or to focus on today or to put my energy into today. I've done those.
hmm
And focusing and spending less of my energy, which tends to be negative, spending less of my energy on the things I did not do and what I could have done better. Because there are moments for that, right, Simone? There are moments for you to be reflective and say, you know what? I approach that situation this way. You know what? I could have done that differently. Next time I'm
right.
going to try this something else. Like there are moments for that, but not all the time. Looking at yourself from like a deficit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about lists, I mean that's what tomorrow is for, right? You can't
I
do
love that.
everything today. There's just no way. I mean, my list. So my life hack is I write my list. I still use a handwritten list. I write it on a pink piece of paper because the pink piece of paper keeps me from losing it. I'm the only person that uses pink in my house, so if I see a white piece of paper, I know that's not my list. I don't need to look at it. But that idea of completing things, I think, is so satisfying for so many people. So I was talking to someone yesterday. Sometimes what I do is if I do something that's not even on the list, I'll write it on the list and then cross it out because I'm like,
Because you did
look,
it.
look, I finished that. But we're too hard on ourselves, right? Do we actually think everybody is finishing their list every single day? No, nobody is, right? Because there's always something that comes up,
That's right.
especially if you're a mom. In 2 seconds, your whole day is like flipped over. Oh, the school called and so has a fever. Can you come pick them up? Okay, well, I
Mm-hmm.
had like 16 things today, but I guess I have to move all 16 things. Like that's how it works. And, it can be really frustrating at times, but it's understanding that everybody struggles and
Yeah.
we're not alone in this. And I think too, when it comes to the mindset piece, I have this little mindset hack that I like to use for what I call the what if whisperer. So that's my voice inside my head. I call the what if whisperer, also known as Sally, because I feel like by naming it, then I can
Yes.
detach myself from it. I was talking to my daughter about it yesterday, and she was like, "Okay, that's kind of weird." I was like, "Well, you don't name yours?" She's like, "I mean, I get what you're saying, Mom, but no, I don't name." I was like, "Maybe
Simone,
when you get older."
I have mine too. I named mine Veronica. Mine's Veronica.
Veronica and Sally can go hang out together.
That's right.
But that whole idea of that we're going to have that voice inside our head. So my little hack is Control Alt Delete. So back in the day, it was how we would restart a frozen computer. Now, when you hit Control Alt Delete, it brings up a task manager. I don't know what a task manager does, but it that's what it does. So and now, like for me on my Mac, if it freezes, I push the power button and then magic, it comes back up again.
Mm-hmm.
So, but our brains freeze too, right? Our minds freeze too. So we get stuck in that spiral of self-doubt, that comparison game. And so control is all about awareness. Sometimes we're not even aware of the things that are coming into our head or the things that we're saying to ourselves, like the you're just a stay-at-home mom. Um, don't do that. You're not capable of it. So control is awareness. And the second part is alt, which is alternative. Tell yourself a better story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, I can't, I can. Instead of, what if I fail? How about when I succeed? And
Mm-hmm.
if we can believe the negative things we say to ourselves all day long, why can't we believe the positive things we say to ourselves? So
Yeah.
it's really that mindset shift. And then delete the comparison game, delete the belief that you're not enough, right? So it's constantly a cycle. I mean, we have so many there's a research study out of Canada that showed that we have like 6,200 thoughts a day. 85% of them are negative, 95% are repetitive. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy when we think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
when you start catching those thoughts and replacing them with something positive, you break the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you break the cycle and you break the cycle and then you can make a different decision, right?
hmm
I find too that sometimes people will practice that, but then there's this gap between, okay, I know I can, Simone, like I've said I can, but then I have trouble like following through on the things I say I'm going to do. So what do
Hmm.
you say to those people?
You have to keep the promises you make to yourself, right? I mean, you do it for everybody else. Why wouldn't you do it for yourself? And I think we have to start looking at it that way. Like if it was something that we promised our child, we would do it.
Hmm.
Why wouldn't we do it for ourselves? So I think it's a constant reminder of you have to do it. It's not an option. And I use positive affirmations a lot, and I have I've had clients that have said, "Oh, well, those don't work for me." I said, "Well, how often did you practice them?" "Well, I tried them once. It didn't work." Like, okay, did you go to the gym one time and become like super buff? Did you take one Spanish lesson and you're fluent, right? And they're like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." I'm like, "No, it's a practice. Like building confidence is a skill. You have to build it from the inside out. It's a constant practice. It's a habit. You have to work on it just like all the other things you work on."
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about that one. Let's talk about, because this is your upcoming book, Real Confidence. I want to talk about, maybe first your real method, how you build unshakable confidence. That's kind of your phrase, unshakable
Hmm.
confidence for high achievers. I'd love for you to talk more about that and share more about that.
So the real method actually came out of my experience with my life, like how I struggled so much to getting to the point where I'm like, okay, this is where I am and this is who I am instead of trying to hide behind this facade. And that was really the turning point was climbing Kilimanjaro. But
Hmm.
the real method stands for respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And the reason I started with respect yourself, not just because I like the word real, because I really do like the word real,
Yeah.
much better than being authentic. I like saying be real.
Hmm.
But I think self respect is the foundation for everything we do. And I remember as a child being taught to respect my elders, my peers, right? Everything, the grandparents. Never once do I remember being taught that the most important person to respect is yourself. And when you think about it, if you don't respect yourself, how do you expect other people to? So we talk a lot about demanding respect. Oh, I'm going to demand respect. Well, you need to demonstrate it, right? You need to show it to yourself. When people see that you put up boundaries for certain things, like you're not going to take on someone else's work because they're too lazy to do it. When again, it's that you can say no without guilt. There's so many different things about self-respect, the way you talk to yourself, right? Talk to yourself like you would your best friend. Those kinds of things really demonstrate self-respect, and that's where we need to start.
I love that. Wait, someone, I'd love for you to delve into the other letter.
Okay. Okay.
Because
So,
I think I what you said, even on respecting yourself, resonates with me. I did a talk, maybe a few months back, and I talked about how the foundation of boundaries is self-respect. And
mm,
we don't think of it that way. And we tend to, like, because of what you said, the conditioning when we're younger about respecting your elders and respecting your peers and making sure that everybody feels respected. But what about what I need, what I want in
mhm.
myself? Right. So I'd love for you to continue, because I think listeners will get so much out of just what you're saying with what this means, the real
Yeah.
method.
Yeah. So embrace your failures, right? For so many of us, when we fail at something, we then feel like we are a failure. And that's not how it works. Like failing at something is a moment in time, right? It's a bump in the road. And a lot of times that keeps us from moving forward because we don't look at it as a learning experience. We look at it as like, oh my gosh, I'm now a failure, right? This didn't go. I'm a failure. And that's not how it works. It really is about learning from what happened. So take that moment and wallow in it, feel all the feelings, and then pick a day to move forward. And it's interesting for me. I mean, I've failed at many things, but it wasn't until I kind of changed my mindset on that where I was like, oh yeah, what did I learn from that? Instead of, oh, I'll never do anything again. And
Mm-hmm.
we're so afraid that what will people think? And oh,
Mm-hmm.
if I fail, like that's the end of the world. No, it's not. It's some of the most successful people fail all the time. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
it because that's how you learn. That's how it's like a test, right? How do you move forward?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, The next one is, I think, one of the hardest thing for women, which is ask yourself what you want, because we're so used to being everything to everybody else. And the idea of really taking a step back and saying, what do I want? What do I need? It's not selfish. And we've been told that for so long, that it's selfish to actually want something for yourself. And that is not true. But think back to when you were a little kid. Like, what did you want to be? What did you want to do? Because that kid still exists. That kid is still in there. And really kind of hashing that out to say, what do I like? What am I good at? And I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow, but I am saying that you can find something to fill your cup that's beyond maybe what you do. So whether it's volunteer work, whether it's singing or drawing, something that you maybe haven't done in a long time because you thought, oh, I know I have to spend all my time taking care of my family or at my work. Take a step back and say, let me try something that really makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
last part is live without limits. We limit ourselves from the second we get up till the second we go to bed.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not capable enough, we're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, all of the not enoughs. And that is just not true. I mean, so yes, I know there are societal pressures for certain things, but the idea of looking at yourself and saying, how am I limiting myself today? Right. And
Mm,
how am I labeling myself today? And I
mm,
was on a podcast recently and we were talking about labels. And I loved when he said, your labels become your lids. So when you start labeling yourself, you're not going to move beyond a certain point because you start believing what you're telling yourself. And that's such a big, important piece of this is that, your thoughts create your reality. The way you talk to yourself creates your reality. So do you really want to get up every day and say, oh my gosh, I hate the person I see in the mirror? Like, who wants that? Right.
mhm,
So when you think about it from that perspective, you're like, no, I want to love the person I see in the mirror. I want to love the person who is me, and
mhm,
treat them with the same respect I treat the other people that I care about.
mm. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges I see, um, especially in women, I would say women who are not super senior in their career. I do think, and I'm in my 40s, I I do think when you hit 40s, 50s, and women tell me who are in their 60s, the same thing, that there's something that happens in terms of you really stop giving an F about a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And you really start truly owning who you are. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't align with me. And so I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to do it my way. You still have responsibilities and obligations, but you've put them in the container where they belong versus letting everything and every thought of what someone thinks of you and what someone will say or like how this will be perceived. And you're like, that was for in my 20s, maybe. And women that get it in their 20s are and their 30s are like leaps and bounds ahead of others. Just because when you can really anchor yourself and say, I am enough. I am doing enough. I'm busting my behind and this is enough. And
Mm-hmm.
I know who I am and I know what I like. And I know that that can change over time. And I'm open to that evolution. It is so powerful. So when you use the word real and you're like, I like saying, instead of saying be authentic, I say be real. And mine is like live in your truth, like be
Mm.
true to you, be true
Mm-hmm.
to you. And you cannot go wrong. Everyone may not like it, but it is
Right.
true to you. And if you like it, then when you're 80, 90, hopefully you live that long, you look back and you'll say, but I did it the way that I wanted to do it. And it wasn't selfish. It was my fullest expression of myself. I asked myself what I really wanted. I asked
Mm-hmm.
myself what I really needed. I may not have gotten it all, but I got pretty damn close to some of it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I see this challenge of women who the inherent issue is often like, I will never be enough.
Mm. Yeah.
And that I always find, even in the most challenging like work situations, even in leadership, if you feel like you're not enough, you're going to put that onto your team. Like you're going
Mm-hmm.
to push them to work harder, to prove it more, to like nothing will ever be enough for you for them because it's not enough for you as a person. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice on that front for people who are listening, who really struggle with that in terms of what can they do that for you has been helpful, or for people that you work with has been really helpful to really try to change the intellectually I understand I'm enough, but I have trouble moving the needle for myself and really feeling like that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess the first question was is to ask yourself, why do you feel like that? Like
Mm,
what are you doing in your life that you feel like you're not enough? Because
mm,
I mean, I can look back to my 20s and say for sure I felt like that, but I didn't have the tools that I have now.
yeah.
So when I look at my two older daughters, so especially the daughter that I do the podcast with, she's 22 and she is leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at that age because we talk about this stuff so openly. We work on it all the time. When she's struggling, a lot of our podcast episodes is she gets on and she's like, I'm struggling with this today. And that's what we'll talk about. And actually, yesterday was me struggling with, like, I didn't get the speaking engagement that I wanted. And I'm like, I do the little what if in my head. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, let it go. Like, okay, it wasn't the right thing at that time. So I really do think it comes back to what are you doing that makes you think that you're not enough? Are you comparing yourself to the other people in your work? Do you feel like you need more practice at what you're doing? I mean, I can tell you with speaking that that's the most important thing is that you come prepared. So if you are prepared, if you are not worried about what anybody else is doing, then it's much easier to overcome those negative beliefs because you know that you have what it takes to be there. But if you show up in a room and you're like, I didn't look at anything, or I'm going into an interview and I didn't, I have no idea anything about this company, yeah, it would make you very nervous.
Yes.
So it's that preparation piece and really asking yourself, why are you thinking this way? Is it because you're looking at everybody else, or are you really looking at yourself and saying, oh, I just struggle? And
Mhm.
there's so many tools out there now to help us move forward that, I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it wasn't readily available. And also the language wasn't around.
Mm,
Like now, I'm teaching my kids how to put language to things that I didn't
hmm.
have as a child. You just suppressed, numbed, ignored. You were ignored. You told to be quiet. Like you didn't have this ability. And also parents, I mean, you're an example of very intentional parenting. I can just see it. Like that is so powerful for children, like even for your daughter, 22, to come and say, I'm struggling with this. Like that was
Hmm.
not a thing when I was
No,
growing up.
I would never have called my mom. I was married at 21. I mean, we've been married 32 years, but I definitely wouldn't have called my mom and said, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? Especially a mindset thing. No,
Yeah.
where that I think because and also I think we talk a lot more about mental health and
Mm.
like across the board. I think that is so important not to talk about the things that we're really great at, but also the things that we struggle with so that we can get help fixing them instead of just saying, oh, everybody else can do this. Why can't I?
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, I think of how much, I think we're great at learning new things. It's harder to unlearn the
Mm,
ways that you think and the ways that you behave and habits that aren't helpful to you anymore that may have been helpful before or may not have. But I find that the detangling is hard for us,
yeah.
right? It can be harder for us in learning something new, right?
Yeah.
Picking up a new habit may be challenging, but it's new and it's exciting. But letting go of an old habit that isn't helpful to you, but that is so familiar and automatic to you, a lot harder, creates a lot more need for, like you said, practice and intention.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with the awareness piece, right? I mean, we have to understand what we're doing and really a lot of people are not aware of how they're talking to themselves, how they're talking about themselves. I actually had a moment with one of my daughters when she was 15. I was getting ready for an event, standing in front of the mirror, talking horribly to
Ah,
myself, telling myself, I can't believe you gained weight again. Like, God, why are you even going to this thing? Nobody's going to want to hang out with you. I mean, like, really mean to myself.
mm,
And she walked in and she said, Mom, you have to stop. First of all, you're beautiful. You have to stop. You're giving me a complex. How do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own? And it was such a wake up call for me because I don't think I realized I was doing that. I didn't realize how it was affecting the people around me. So, what you said before about teams, like when you're kind of putting these things on yourself that you're not good enough, like what do you think your team is going to feel, right? And
Mhm.
it just all transfers. And I didn't realize that for a really long time until she called me out and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" Right?
Mm.
This is not what I want to be doing. This is not what I want my kids to see and feel. I want them to look in the mirror and say, "I love what I see." And I feel like
Mhm.
I've mostly accomplished that now with them, or they've accomplished that. Um, my daughter Olivia, so she's the one I have the podcast with, she was saying yesterday that she really doesn't struggle with the body image stuff anymore. That was a really big struggle for her for so long. She's like, I've realized people take me or they leave me. It doesn't, that, if
Mhm.
they don't choose to be around me because they don't like what they see, then that's their choice. Um,
Yes.
I think more of her struggle right now is being in law school, thinking that imposter syndrome piece of that she's,
Yeah.
oh, do I really deserve to be here? And then she'll
Yeah.
take a test and think, oh, I did really crappy. And I'm like, why are you thinking that you did really crappy? She's like, I don't know. It was just so overwhelming. And then she gets like the top four grade in the class. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you have to stop being so hard on yourself. You
Yeah.
put in the work. And so like I see like this growth.
Mhm.
It's not across the board, but for all of us, we all struggle with something. So, but
Yeah.
it is that constant work that helps us move forward.
Yes, oh, I love that you mentioned that she's in law school. I'm a lawyer by training, and I was a litigator for a decade or so. And law school is an environment. This goes to the what we were talking about before about you have your own mindset, your own lens, and then the environment impacts you. And it sometimes it comes to a head. And so the environment she's in is extremely competitive.
Mhm.
And the environment is so conducive to being hard on yourself. Right. It breeds that kind of mentality of like be hard on yourself because you're not good enough, because everything's graded in a curve and there are only 4 A's that are available. And so
Mhm.
people are like clawing for those A's because they understand the stakes are super high. So when I hear, that you coaching, kind of coaching her through that is really powerful. So she can understand, hey, like you've done the work, you've prepared, you've done your best. And by the way, you ended up with like a top grade. So
Right,
you should
exactly.
be a little bit more confident next time because you do
Yeah.
the work and you're showing up for yourself, and how important that is in an environment, Simone, that is tough. Like that's a
Yeah.
tough environment to be in. So kudos to her and to you for supporting her. I know the lawyers who are listening right now are like, I wish I had my mom who could do that for me.
Yeah, I mean, what another thing that's really interesting is that she's had people come up to her and say, "How do you get up in the Harkness discussions and just always appear to be confident?" And she
Yeah.
said, "I do a podcast with my mom." So she's so used to like talking on the go, like speaking from just like a random question will come up and she's like, she just says it. And I was like, okay, everybody should do a podcast. Like it really is helpful because you never know what someone's going to ask you or what's going to
Mhm.
come next, and
That's
you have
right.
to figure out to think on your feet. So I was like, okay, that's great. I'm so glad that that is like a side effect of the
Yes.
podcast.
Yes. And using your voice and trusting your voice,
Hmm.
right? Trusting that I have a perspective that's unique and I'm going
Yeah.
to share who I am as I am in this moment, like you said,
Hmm.
on my feet. So let's talk a little bit more about that, Simone, because I feel like that's part of building confidence and being confident in yourself. You have a book coming out called Real Confidence. I'd love for you to talk to us more about that book and how it's different from your previous one.
Yeah. So this book is really based on my real method. It's Real Confidence, a simple guide to go from unsure to unshakable. Now, when I say unshakable, it doesn't mean like you're never going to have negative thoughts. It means you're going to move forward anyways, despite them. You're going to keep going because you know what you're capable of. So it's a lot of very personal stories, other people's stories as well, and frameworks, exercises to really help you put these different pieces into play. My first book, um, that book was more of it's self-help, but more kind of memoir style.
Yeah.
The whole point of the book, so it's called The Extraordinary Unordinary You. Follow your own path, discover your own journey. And what I didn't realize when I wrote the first book is people want to be told, do this so that you can get this outcome. And that was the whole point of the subtitle, Follow Your Own Path. So this book, the second book, I really decided to really focus on the frameworks and the exercises to really help people like take the next step. But in the first book, I tell stories of my younger kids' adoptions, climbing Kilimanjaro.
Mm-hmm.
We had a foster daughter for about 9 months, talking about
Mm-hmm.
her story. It's all about realizing what you're capable of and recognizing that the little things you do every day matter. And
Mm.
and then real confidence is about, that confidence is a skill and you build it from the inside out, right? It's not something you're born with. It's not something other
Right.
people have and you don't. It's something that
Mm-hmm.
you work on, just like everything else
Mm-hmm.
you work on. You go to the gym, why not work on your confidence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and confidence is built through, like what you said before, when you make missteps and you
Yeah.
learn from them. And I think that's when I think of confidence, I think of self-trust
Mm,
and trusting yourself that no matter what happens, you can meet the challenge. Whatever outcome it is, that you're going to be okay and that you're going to step forward to the next challenge with even a lot more grit, but also a lot more knowledge and an inner knowing that, hey, like I'm prepared for this. Everything in my life that I've done up to this point has prepared me for this moment. And then that just
mm-hmm.
keeps moving on and moving on and moving on in your life, where that's why I always find women who are older to be the most confident many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are exceptions, but I find that they're not as phased by things, right? They have the perspective of this is small stuff, this is big stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that and especially now when you go on social media and everybody's comparing everybody to everybody else, and
Yes.
that I mean, I didn't have that. I'm 53. I did not have that. So, um, I had my own struggles though,
Yeah.
and it was how I moved forward. I didn't know how to move forward because it wasn't something I was ever taught, and I didn't realize that it was a skill. And I think if we approach our mindset and our confidence as something that everybody's capable of, right? You have to
Mhm.
work on it, then you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish.
Yes. So Simone, let me ask you another question related to confidence, because part of, I think, what you've been saying too is that there is this desire for people, and I think this was in your first book a little bit too, or maybe a lot, of just one, not just being okay with you, but like really being the full you.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if you can talk more about that.
Yeah, we often like to hide pieces of who we are, right? We put up a facade. We pretend. I read this thing the other day about women when they go out to lunch, that even if you wanted to order chicken wings, if every other woman at the table orders a salad, there is no way you're going to order the chicken wings. You're going to order the salad. Like, order the chicken wings. If you want them, order them. Right. So, but that is like representative of how we do things, that we're so worried that what someone else is going to think about things that we do, things that we're not capable of. I, one of the exercises I do, we talked about the drop the just, but I'm like, when you first meet people, you usually tell them your name, where you're from, what you do, right? What's something that you typically wouldn't say to somebody about yourself? And so it was really interesting in this one workshop that I had, the things that people were sharing, because I was like, um, this is not what I expected, but this is fantastic. One of the women was like, I can swallow my own tongue. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
What?
Yeah. Another woman was like, I know never tell anybody this, but I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, I was like, that was really powerful. I have I want to say my little Friday night trick that I do where I can whistle without moving my mouth. So that's kind of how I started. It was like showing like
Yeah.
you got to embrace all the different parts of you. Like the
Hmm.
weird is fabulous, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
to worry about what that someone else is going to judge you because of something you wear, something you do. Everybody has something weird about them. And that's what makes us great. And
Mhm.
so it's really embracing all of those parts. I mean, I, one of the things I struggle with right now is hair loss. Like I am,
Mhm.
despite everything I've tried, my hair is falling out. And
Mhm.
I said to my husband, he's like, who cares? Like, you want to get a
Mm.
wig, get a wig. You want to shave it off, shave it off. I love you exactly as you are. I don't
I
care
love
about your
that.
hair. But that's the thing. I don't like, we worry so much about these little things. And obviously, some of them are things that make us feel bad about ourselves. But
Mm.
so many of the things that we worry about, it's because we're worried someone else is going to judge us instead of like how we actually feel. So
Mhm.
when I look in the mirror, I just say, okay, I need to dye my hair right now because it's graying, but I don't look at it and say, okay, well, what, oh, this is ridiculous. Like people are going to say horrible things about me. Nobody's thinking about me. Nobody,
Yes.
like, we focus on that so much, but at the end of the day, really, like, we're making up that story in our head. So
Mhm.
we got to
Yes.
embrace all of us, like the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And that's how you move forward because if you leave certain parts behind, you are not being real.
Yes. Yes, you're not being real. Be all of who you are, all the
Hmm.
parts of you. I love that. All right, Simone, how can people work with you, connect with you, find you, including getting your book, all of that?
So you can find me at my website, SimoneKnego.com, SIMONEKNEGO. You can find our podcast, which is Her Unshakable Confidence, and we drop an episode every Tuesday. My new book, Real Confidence, is you can find that at realconfidencebook.com because there's a bunch of freebies when you pre-order. And so that comes out February 17th. And then I'm on social media. If you search Simone Knego, you will find me because I am still the only Simone Knego in the world. Pleasure of marrying someone with a really hard last name so that worked out well for me. And my first book, The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You, easiest to get it off of Amazon. So I did record the audiobook and it is my voice. So if you want to listen
Yay.
to my voice more, you can listen to that.
I love that. I love when authors narrate their own books. I think
Yeah.
it's important. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, Simone, thank you so much. I'll make sure that I throw those links in the show notes so everyone will be able to click on those and find you and find the books very easily. Thank you again for joining me. I loved our conversation. I feel like you have a unique perspective and I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.